Well, good evening, friends, here in Dallas and Fort Worth, Houston, and around the country as you listen in. It's so great to be with you tonight. If we've never met before, my name is Garrett. I typically spend my Tuesday nights about 40 miles west over in Fort Worth. I don't know if you knew this. Somebody knew that. And so I don't know if the rest of you, the majority knew this, but there's an invisible section of seats that's here every single Tuesday. And it's just a little bit west of here in Fort Worth. It meets over in the Ridgely Theater. I actually want to start tonight by telling you a story about something that happened there about 3 weeks ago. 3 or 4 weeks ago now, I lose count, January 26th, a few weeks ago. Oh my gosh, we're up to 5 or 6 weeks now. January 26th was the first Porch of the year. And so we take off around Christmas break. And so there's like a 6-7 week break. Some of you kind of get a little antsy because it's time for Porch to start back up again. And so that starts to happen a little bit. And then finally on January 26th, we load up and we're ready for the first Porch of 2016. Something you want to know about the experience in Fort Worth, we typically stream the message. By stream, I mean it comes through on the internet on a flat screen. So whoever's in 3 dimensions with you here in Dallas is in 2 dimensions over in Fort Worth on the screen. All right, and so that's what's normal. That is obviously dependent on technology. So January 26th, we all load up in the Ridgely Theater. No exaggeration, I just want you to get a feel for what that moment was like. 7 weeks of pent up energy. Lots of excitement. We're all ready to go. There's, just so that you know, there was more people in the theater than we've ever had on a Tuesday night before. It's very exciting. And so the stream comes on. We move through the worship set. So there's a band there that leads us live in worship there in Fort Worth. And we move through the worship set. And then on comes the stream, the sermon time. And it has no audio. So there's no sound coming. It's like JP's mouth is moving. And you can tell it's animated. I mean, there's this going on. And so that's happening. And so we're watching 1920s movie kind of thing. And then, but good news, we have a backup. And so I left my seat and I kind of went back to the AV booth to see how my friends were doing. And so we switched to the backup feed. And wouldn't you know, it's also dependent on technology. And so that one starts to click, it goes off, black screen. And you hear an audible, oh. And my friend who serves on the AV team, who has an answer for everything. On this one, his answer was to look up. He looked at me, we made eye contact. It felt like an hour. I know it was a 2-second interaction. And he said, "You're on." And he pointed to the stage. I'm like, oh boy. Okay, so I got between here and the stage to come up with something. And I just want to tell you, we were together for a normal 35-minute sermon. And the best part about that sermon is that it's over. You're not going to find that sermon anywhere. It's not on the podcast. It's like not in the resource center. It's not on the apps. You can look for it. Like it won't be there. It's done. And so we did survive. We did make it. And my countenance personally, as this was going on, was just a sense of dependence. Like, okay, God, I mean, who could be in control of this except you? We've got great technology. We've got the best and brightest personnel that you can possibly imagine that put this thing together. And we were ready to go. And so if something went wrong, it's got to be you. And so that was kind of my posture. And then all of a sudden I came off of that moment. 10 o'clock hits. We lock the doors. I go home. And my posture starts to change dramatically. Now, I just would want you to know this about me, honest confession. I've sometimes been accused of being a little bit intense and kind of like, And so you heard of type A? Like type A hole, okay, is like what I've been accused of every once in a while. And so, I'm going to start on the real foot with you guys. I'm just going to be honest. And so I have that downside. And so all of a sudden after the message, whereas I didn't feel like I needed answers beforehand, all we just needed to do what was God wanted us to do. All of a sudden afterward, I felt like I really needed some answers. I felt like, okay, was it man? Was it machine? Was it a mistake that someone made? Or was it a box that's broken? I mean, what's the deal? And so my need for answers continued to rise. And instead of all of a sudden feeling like the stream and the experience that we get every single Tuesday night, instead of remembering that that's a privilege, all of a sudden, that itself and all the answers that pertain to that particular situation started to feel like rights to me that I was losing and having to part with. And so a couple days later, this does not lift. This darkness does not lift. It's not from God, by the way. I'm not condoning this. I'm being honest with you. And so the next Wednesday was not a good day. Thursday morning, I'm driving over to work again, and it still has not, what I've got from the team, which just to be clear, the team is best, brightest in the land, in the business, period. Like they're working on it. That's what I'm getting is they're working on it, which should bring comfort. But instead, I was so lost in my own entitlement to what I thought were rights, namely information, that I was so frustrated. I got into a traffic jam on Thursday morning, and I thought I was going to be late. And the lateness doesn't normally bother me so much, but I felt my hand form into a fist, and I brought it down twice on my console, and it was broken. Which is why no one needs to interrupt this sermon tonight. I'm not kidding. I broke my car. I literally, like, my console was broken. Like the latch broke. I mean, 1, 2, the latch is broken. It's like up and it's just laughing at me. And so what happens is it's like, it's open and it won't close. It's like the middle console. It's like hanging open. And I'm like, I'm looking for something to hold it down. All I got's my Bible. Great. And so I've got my Bible holding down my broken car console that I broke in a fit of anger. And so here's the deal. We're not talking about anger tonight because I'm convinced that anger is actually just this outworking, the symptom, the outward fruit of what my real problem was. And so I want to tell you what that specific problem was, and then we'll go into it tonight. That problem, I'm convinced, was entitlement. Entitlement. And I'm gonna give you a definition of entitlement before we go any further so that you know exactly what we're talking about. Entitlement is the belief that your privileges, namely an experience on Tuesday night, an answer about what happened on Tuesday night, anything like that, your privileges, namely things you don't deserve, are actually your rights. It's believing that the things that are your gifts, your blessings, kindnesses to you, are actually things that you've merited, actually your rights, and you will not part with them easily. That's what entitlement is. And so I appreciate you getting to chuckle at mine, but let's let you have a go. And so from our team to you, let's take a little entitlement quiz tonight, and we'll see how we're doing. All right, so here we go. Entitlement quiz number 1. You are almost to the porch on time, but the parking line is slow. No. How done are you? A, done. B, so done. C, will you forgive me for flipping you off at church? That's the laughter of the guilty right there. Number 2, you're working hard for a promotion only for a coworker to get it instead. Ouch. Your reaction is, I'm overqualified. I'm too good for this job. B, who did they suck up to? C, I quit. I'm leaving. I'm quit. I need a new job. I'm out of here. All right, number 3. Oh boy, close to home. You've been single after college long enough to be counting in years instead of months. I wish you the best. All right. When asked why, you say, I'm too intimidating. These people are scared of me. That sounds like something Mama would say, right? They're scared of you. B, life sucks. C, I need a new church. I am out of here. I am out of here. 6 more months of not getting asked out, and I am leaving, and I'm gonna make sure they know. It's gonna be on social media. I'm gonna tell them. We know some of you think that. Oh, it's so easy. It's so easy in our day and age, in our culture, to sink into this idea of entitlement. There's just breeding grounds for it everywhere. The gas pump, it's like you pull up to the gas pump, the buttons don't work, the pump clicks, the receipt doesn't come out. It's like the horror. I think I might have to go inside. I think I'm gonna have to deal with a person. Oh no. It's like this is the reason. Entitlement is the reason. This confusion between privileges and rights, this is the reason why the hashtag first world probs exists, and it's hilarious. This is the reason right here, because the people who have the most seem to have the most problems, which is amazing. It's like the pizza, some of you had this. The pizza delivery guy comes. There's no ranch. You're like, I can't even eat this. I can't even deal with this anymore. And we hate it. Oh, we hate it. We hate it when we see it in other people. We can't stand it. It's like the person's in line at the grocery store in the express line, 15 items or less, and they got that whole cart, and you were like, that right there, that's the problem with humanity right there. And then you get in the express lane in the tollway and you're just going by everybody in traffic like, ha. Just taking care of entitlement. And some of you, I know what you're thinking. I paid, it's the tollway. Which tells me you think that you bought your entitlement. You're really not gonna let it go. This confusion between privileges and rights is a dangerous thing. So here's the good news. Jesus knows about this. He knows that we are apt to get our privileges and our rights confused. He knows that we are very likely to get confused between what we deserve and what we don't. And he knows that we're gonna disappoint ourselves greatly and unnecessarily and cause pain to our relationships and ourselves when we get confused about that. And so he told a story once, Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20 is where we'll be tonight. He told a story once that discusses this particular idea. He speaks very clearly to this particular issue. It's fascinating. It's called a parable. So if you don't know what a parable is, it's just a fictional story, one made up story that's designed to illustrate, designed to show one idea. So Jesus is going to tell a little made up fictional story about a vineyard, about workers who go into a vineyard, and it discusses very clearly entitlement that I'm gonna explain as we go. Matthew 20th chapter, that's the first book of your New Testament, first verse of the 20th chapter. Here we go. Verse 1. For the kingdom of heaven is like a master of a house. The master of the house, so that everyone knows, is God in the story, represents God in the story, who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. Now, early in the morning is a specific phrase that means something. They were on a specific clock. Like, they never had the conversation about, whoa, what are your hours? Are you like normal 8 to 5? Do you work weekends? Do you work nights? They would have never had that. It's like daylight's when you work. So everybody worked from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It was a 12-hour shift, roughly 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., and they would count the hours from 6. And they would go through the day. So a 12-hour shift, that was understood. And so at 6 a.m., the master of the house goes to hire laborers for his vineyard. He's looking in the marketplace for people who can work. It says, after agreeing with the laborers, he found some that were available for hire for a denarius a day, he sent them into his vineyard. Now, you want to know what a denarius is. That's just a normal day wage for a day laborer. So that's like standard wage for day labor. So just so that we've got a number, a US dollars number that we can throw in there so that we've got at least a mental picture of how much money this is, call it a little more than a minimum wage, $9 an hour, 12 hours, do a little rounding, call it $100. All right? So the deal is, you work for me 12 hours, I'll give you a Benjamin, that's the deal. And so they cut this deal to work all day. And they go. It says in verse 3, and going out about the third hour, so remember they start at 6 a.m. and count, so the third hour is 9 a.m. The master goes back out, and he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. More people who had zero purpose, they had zero employment, they had nothing to do, and he sees them standing idle in the marketplace, and he says to them, you guys go into the vineyard too, and whatever is right I will give you. Interesting, non-specific agreement. Did you notice that? Did not tell them what they were going to get. The first guy's really clear. Hey, 6 a.m. people, go work 12 hours, I will give you a denarius. Next group, 9 a.m. Hey, you guys go into the vineyard, whatever's right at the end of the day. I'll do the math and I'll give it to you. Non-specific. So they went. Going out again about the 6th hour, that's noon, and the 9th hour, that's 3 p.m. He did the same. And then the 11th hour, think about this. The 11th hour, it's 5 p.m. The workday's almost done. It's almost over. About the 11th hour, he goes out and he finds others still standing. And he hires them. He says, hey, why do you stand here idle all day long? They said, no one's hired us. No one gave us anything to do. And he said to them, the master said to them, you go into the vineyard too. And so now we got a pack of guys working together in a vineyard. They've been stomping on grapes all day. It's hot out there, and they have been joined into this group in stages. And so imagine you're the 6 a.m. crew. Imagine you're the guys who have endured the heat of the day. You're the guys who have worked the hardest and earned your keep, and you guys had the guarantee of what was coming to you. And all of a sudden, you're out there working at 6, and then some more guys come, and then some more guys come, and then some more guys come. At some point, this is going to cross your mind. You're gonna think, who are these guys? Did the master hire them? And whose pay exactly are they gonna cut into? Because you wanna make sure that your part of the deal is preserved. You wanna make sure that the agreement that you had is absolutely honored, and but you make room for them, and on and on and on the day goes until finally 60 minutes before time to quit, even more people come. So with question marks everywhere, finally at 6 o'clock, time to quit and go see the boss. So here they come. And when evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, call the laborers and pay them their wages. Here's where it gets interesting. Beginning with the last, the people who worked the least, the 5 p.m. crew that worked for an hour, up to the first who worked all day, those first hired. And when those hired about the 11th hour came, each of them received a denarius. Okay, picture this moment. We got all these guys lined up in reverse order. that they were hired in. The first guys come up. It's time to get paid. Everybody likes to get paid. It's payday. And so he's standing right here, and he gets paid a denarius, okay? And nobody knows what they're getting paid except the guys in the very back. They're the only ones who know what they're getting paid. So it's presumable that the first group to be paid is going to get a 12th of that because they worked a 12th as long. Instead, they receive a denarius. Well, here's what happens. The guy who's second in line is bound to be looking over. I mean, there's no way that he wouldn't be. And so the next group is kind of looking, and they see that this starts to happen, and people talk, okay? I've heard a saying, 3 people can keep a secret as long as 2 of them are dead. I believe that that's true. And so here's the deal. People are going to talk, people are going to share, people are going to talk. And so all of a sudden they found out, hey, these guys got a denarius for their hour. And that news trickles back into the line. And that creates a dangerous little thing called entitlement, hope, expectation, all those things. And so that starts to rise the farther the line goes. Verse 10. Now, when those hired first came, when they were hired, those who had hired earlier, worked the longest, worked the hardest, they thought they would receive more. There's your entitlement. They thought they would receive more. Not they hoped. Not, oh, that would be a privilege that I would like. They thought they would receive more. They were convinced that they would actually receive more. Can't you hear them? One denarius for an hour. Does that mean we're going to get 12? Does that mean we're going to get paid $1,200 for this day? But each of them also received a denarius. And on receiving it, they grumbled at the master of the house, who just kept his end of the deal, to be clear, saying, these last worked only for an hour. They worked for 1 hour. Can you feel the outrage in that? They worked for 1 hour. You gave them what you agreed to for us. And you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat. In other words, there's a little problem here between what was given and what's being received. You are not giving me, master, what I deserve. You are not giving me the things that I bargained for. And so they forgot a really key piece of information. It's in verse 10. They thought they would receive more. They forgot what they deserved. They completely forgot what they actually deserved. That is a dangerous thing to do, by the way. And so our first point tonight is remember what you deserve. Remember what you deserve. Now you got to be careful there, because that sounds a little bit like entitlement, right? I'm going to assert what I deserve. What I mean by remember what you deserve is, I mean remember what you actually deserve. What you biblically deserve. What you really should get, what you're entitled to, what your rights really are. So let's take a look at this. Romans 3:23, very famous verse. Many of you have seen it before. All have sinned. By all, I'm going to pause on the story just for a second, and I'm going to see what we actually deserve, and then we're going to go back. So it says in Romans 3:23, all have sinned. By all, of course, it means every human being who's ever lived. And by sin, it means lived in a way that's contrary to God. Lived in a way that's offensive to God. Lived in a way that puts a spiritual obscene gesture in God's general direction. Every human being who has ever lived has lived that way. Every single person is a sinner. That's where we are. The news does not get better. Romans 6:23. The wages, interesting word there. That's like an entitled to word. That's like a deserve word. It's like a what we should get word. The wages of sin is death. The wages of sin is death. So in 9 or 10 words right there, the scripture has made it really, really clear. Those are taken out of their verses. That's why there's ... but they're not taken out of context. This is what they mean. They mean that every human being who's ever lived and ever had a life actually has sinned against God, and that there's a wage for that. There is an entitlement that comes with that. There is a payment that comes with that. There is a what you deserve that comes with that, and it's death. And by death, it means separation from God. Separation from the life giver. Separation from everything that reminds you of life. The Bible has a word for it. Hell. That's what we deserve. If you have a pulse and you can hear my voice right now, that's what you deserve. That's the biblical truth. Which is why you want to be very careful about asserting what you deserve in this life. That's why you want to be very hesitant to speak really broadly and really boldly about what you think you should get. You might want to remember what these workers forgot in the parable. They forgot what they actually deserved. It led to lots of heartache for them. You would do well to remember those little verses of what you actually deserve from God. You want to thank God tonight that he is not fair. God is so much better than fair. If you want God to be fair, check out Hinduism. I wouldn't encourage it. You can check out karma. You can check out any other ideological system out there. You're probably going to find some false idea of balance. God is so much better than fair. He is better than fair. If you are alive right now, you are getting better than you deserve from God today, right now. Think about this with me. 5 million people or so woke up today in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex. Not one person deserved it. Nobody. We woke up today, and you know what we got? All of us. Sinners, saints, thieves, criminals, rapists, murderers, people doing everything they can to glorify God, and people who are doing everything they can to run as fast as they can from God. Everybody got the same exact thing, precipitation. And half of us were mad about it because we're so entitled to our food. It says in Matthew 5:45, God sends rain on the just and the unjust. He makes his sun rise on the evil and the good. God gives grace that's common to everyone, namely the fact that you can breathe right now. So if we're gonna talk about what we actually deserve, we gotta lower the bar way down because we don't deserve anything good from God. We deserve less than nothing from God. These guys made the mistake. They forgot what they deserve. If you are struggling to remember what your due is, it's simply, this is gonna be redundant, it is simply because you forgot what you deserve. You completely forgot what it is that you deserve from God. Entitlement cannot get a foothold if you don't allow that to happen. It always starts here. Forget what you signed on for. You just forget what you deserve. They forgot that in this story, and now they've got to deal with the master. Verse 13, Matthew 20. But he replied to one of them, friend. Isn't that gentle for someone who forgets what they deserve and then come falsely given a charge and falsely given an accusation? You did us wrong when you did no, he did no wrong, when the master actually did no wrong. But look how gently he replies, friend, I'm doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Side note, I think I would have added, and you didn't even have a job. Let's just talk about how you did not have a job. You were like gainfully unemployed before we got into this arrangement. Did you not agree with me for a denarius? Take what belongs to you and go. And look at these words. You can't blame him for being unclear. This is clear. I choose. I choose. I choose to give to this last worker as I give to you. Now let me ask you a question, friend. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Whew. Would you want to hear that from God? Come here, friend. Let's have a little talk. Do I not get to pick? Don't I pick? Don't I choose? My second point tonight is God distributes everything. God distributes everything. Everything that's valuable in the universe, God distributes. He owns it, it's his, and he distributes it as he sees. So everything, that means talent, that means success, that means relationships, it means money, it means kids and families and cars, it means houses, it means addresses where those houses are placed, it means titles, promotions, approval, and a lot more. God owns it all. He owns everything, and he distributes it as he sees fit. Psalm 24:1 says, the earth is the Lord and all that fills it. The earth, the whole thing, is the Lord's and everything that fills it. The world and those who dwell therein, even the people. God owns the people. He owns everything, and he distributes everything. I love this because this will always be the response of Jesus to entitlement. This will always be the response of Jesus to entitlement. You're not going to catch him being rough with you. Hey, friend, he's gentle. But he's also not going to lie to you and say, you know what, yes, I have done you wrong. Like, that's never gonna happen. Here's the shortest conversation between you and Jesus ever. It's the one where he lists the things that he did you wrong. That is a short talk, shortest sermon in Porch history. All the ways God did you wrong. Let's close in prayer, it's done. You have never been done wrong by God, ever. But we still come with suspicion, don't we? Don't we come with accusation? Let me try some on. I'm just gonna make these up. I've been following you for a decade of singleness, God, a decade. That person has been following you for about 8 months, and it looks like they've got a God-fearing relationship that's gonna go towards marriage. And see, I didn't understand that you were gonna be so confusing in the way you distribute these things. Someone else gets a car, someone else gets a job, someone else gets a promotion, someone else comes to the job later and then runs away with all the opportunity, and we come with the accusation. You didn't give me what I deserved. I endured it. I endured more. I'm the harder worker. I'm the one who's done more for you. Jesus says, okay, hard worker, let me remind you of something. Friend, I've done you no wrong. He is kind. If you want to know how he's going to handle your entitlement issue, he is kind, he is clear, and he is honest. Here's kind, friend. Here's clear. I did you no wrong. Here's honest. I choose. I do. And I know you don't like that if you don't trust me. But if you do trust me, you love it. You'll love it. Because I'm watching you too. And then if that weren't enough, Jesus asked the last penetrating question, and it is the most difficult to read if you get caught in an entitled moment. Listen to this question from Jesus. Or do you begrudge my generosity? Do you begrudge my generosity? In other words, hey, are you mad at me because I was nice to them? Can you imagine that conversation between you and Jesus? He has done you no wrong. He has never done you any wrong. He's never done your family any wrong. He's never done, because after all, we know what we deserve. And so he has never actually given you what you deserve. He has consistently, for every day of your entire life, given you better than what you actually and biblically deserve. And you come in with the accusation because of what he's given somebody else, and he looks at you and says, hey, you gonna be mad at me because I was kind to that person, friend? He didn't have to yell. That's so heart penetrating. I mean, what does he have to do? He could whisper that and you would melt. Hey, you gonna be mad at me because I was nice to that person? You gonna be mad because that imperfect self got more than your imperfect self? Can we just remember for a second what everybody here deserves? I did you no wrong. Do you begrudge my generosity? And then this last statement tells me that he is trying to warn us. He's trying to warn us. Don't miss this last bit. He is trying to show us that it is not going to make sense if you try to observe what everybody else is being distributed to and what they're receiving. It is not going to add up in your sight. If you choose to try to look left and right and decide in what order you should go, and in what order the promotion should come, and in what order the spouse should come, and in what order the money should come, or in what order, comparatively speaking, at all. He's trying to warn us away from this. And so he says, so the last will be first, and the first last. In other words, in your eyes, whenever we line up to get payday, first, why don't you remember that you don't really want payday because payday's bad for you. You don't want what you deserve. But when you line up to receive grace from me, when you line up to receive the things that you don't deserve from me, when you line up to receive privilege from me, let me warn you about something. If you watch what other people receive, it might not seem to go in order to you. I just want to warn you ahead of time. The first will be last and the last first. And I know I could have cleared all this up if I just paid everybody like a normal person. But that's not the way I do things. It's going to be different. The math won't work. Your powers of observation will not work. Your ability to piece together what God's doing won't work because it's just simply on a canvas that's bigger than you can see. And so let me just warn you, don't begrudge my generosity to other people. And I just want to let you know ahead of time, the last will be first and the first will be last. Comparison will kill you. So my last point tonight is that comparison fuels entitlement. Comparison fuels entitlement. These guys were fine. These guys were fine until they saw what the other people got. Like, what if they had been blindfolded and earplugged and then they got to the front and then it was let there be light and they got paid their denarius? I bet they went home fine. They would have gone home just fine. Wouldn't have been a problem. But see, there's something about that awareness. There's something about that vision into what other people are getting from God. And we know it's from God. We know deep down that the one who is behind the choices and the one who is behind the blessings that other people receive, we know it's God. And if we start to compare, we are going to be really, really in danger. Just simply by virtue of the knowledge, we'll be really in danger of assuming that we deserve a fraction or in proportion to what that other person received. And it can lead to confusion and certainly entitlement, the confusion of what is deserved versus what is not. So let me give you 2 ideas as we finish up tonight. 2 ideas. So you're like, what do I do? What can I do about entitlement? I got 2 ideas for you. You can choose which one you are. And so if you happen to be a Jesus follower, if you identify tonight, you're like, I'm a Christian. Yes, that's me. I follow him. I believe in him. I believe that he actually is the Son of God that he proclaims to be, that he literally died and literally rose again, that that's a real thing that happened in a real place at a real time, and that he is alive today and that he is God and I'm giving him my whole life. If that's you, I have a simple exercise for you. I did it earlier today, in fact. I would love for you to try to do this. Take a pen and put it on the paper and write down 100 things. This feels like school, 100 things. So write down, pen on paper, 100 things that are your privileges, but that you tend to forget and think they're your rights. So find 100 things that you think, like on your worst day, when you wake up and you get angry and you're like, there's never a car console around here when I need one because I am upset right now. It like falls in waves. I thought you guys weren't with me for a second, then everybody laughed. On your worst days, those things that you think are your rights, those things, write them down and just simply remind yourself, these are privileges. These things, these are privileges. I'm not owed anything on this list. Not at all. Every one of these things is a gift. Just reclassify them and remind yourself. I did this earlier today, and so here it is. It took me half an hour. This is not a long assignment. So I did this in half an hour. And so I wrote down, I know, you're like, how do you even read that? And so I wrote down, there's everything on here from my relationship with God, my access to God. That was number 1, my access to God. And so I just started to write. And everything is on that list, from my fiance's smile to my ability to practice hygiene. Like everything is on that list. Everything that I could possibly think of. And I would get stuck. I'm like, socks, shoes, shoelaces, shoe cleaner. You know, it's like, you just get stuck. I mean, you start to have fun with it. It's like, oh my goodness. And so I looked at that piece of paper and I thought that could have gone for a very long time. And all of a sudden, I just have a little more joy today. You know why? Because instead of assuming that the things that are right here, instead of assuming that the things right here are because of my intrinsic meanness, all of a sudden I remember this is just because I'm loved by God. Everything I have, every relationship in my life, every person, a lot of these are names, ton of them. Family, yes, family, right? Everything on there is not owed me. So why don't you do that? If you count yourself a Christ follower, why don't you try that on? If you are not, if you would say, hey, I don't know, man, I don't know. I'm not really a God person. I'm not really a Jesus person. I'm not really the religious type or however you might self-describe. Let me give you something. This passage was actually written for you. Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16, I think it is written for you. The primary thing that Jesus is trying to communicate with this story is in fact not a tip, a trick, or a technique about how to fight entitlement, although it is clearly useful for that. His goal is to communicate that no matter where you are in your life, no matter where you are in your relationship to God right now, you can have a connection with him that starts today. It is not too late. You have not wasted so much time that God will not come to the marketplace or whatever place you're in and call you to be a part of what he's doing. There is no such thing as a situation that you've created for yourself that God will not approach you and say, hey, come with me. I got a place for you. I want to call you friend. Let me explain how this works. The passage is for you. And don't misunderstand. It's not there so you can say, oh, goody, I'll wait till the last hour. It might be the last hour. This might be the last time Jesus calls clearly to you. It might be your 5 p.m. And so if you don't happen to follow Christ, why don't you spend some time with us afterward and let us just talk with you. We won't force you to do anything, but we'll share with you what the truth is and the kind call of God that he wants to give you purpose and call you friend. That's what the passage is designed to do. Love to close with a story. A couple weeks ago, my then girlfriend, and I decided to go to Palo Duro Canyon. Shout out West Texas. Shameless. All right. West Texas. All right. And I thought, I've been to Palo Duro Canyon before. She's not from Texas. She just got here as fast as she could. And so she's never seen it. I'm like, okay, Palo Duro, it's kind of this big hole in the ground, and I've seen it before, but with that, happy boo, happy you. So I'm like, all right, here we go. She's listening in Fort Worth right now, and she's very nervous, I promise. Okay, so we go out to Palo Duro Canyon. It's beautiful. It's more beautiful than I remembered. I'd love to show you a picture of it, in fact. So there we are. It's so great and all. And so just like 2 feet farther away from the camera, and we're done. So we just got our feet hanging off right there. But it is a beautiful spot. We're loving it. We just handed my phone to a guy that was passing by. And I thought, this is beautiful, so I think we're going to just propose right here. So this is what's about to happen. So that actually happened. And so a few minutes later, we handed my phone to another guy. He was like walking by. I was like, hey man, will you take our picture? And I did it kind of rudely, kind of abruptly. I was like, hey man, will you take a picture? And he was like, yeah, I guess. And he saw me go like this. He was like, oh, and he started fumbling with the phone. But he got it pointed in the right direction. Thank you. So there we are. And we are happy. Okay, those are happy people. All right, we're excited to marry each other. I think it's gonna go great. I really do. She's my better half. I'm her other half. This is gonna go really great. So that's where we are. Now, look, let's just be honest with you for a second. I know that's a lot of fun, but do you think entitlement, is it look at those two people. You think entitlement's in there anywhere in those two people's minds? Oh yeah, it was there. You think I expected a yes? You're not gonna insult me, come on. You think I expected a yes? I'm not exactly the kind of guy who goes to the jeweler on a whim, all right? We had talked about this. I was expecting a yes, all right? What about her? You think she was expecting a ring? You think she felt entitled to a ring? I don't think I pulled out a diamond and she thought, this guy is a pioneer. What a what a creative. This guy digs deep. Wow. I really doubt that happened, okay? And there's plenty, the smiles are genuine. There's plenty of happiness there. But imagine with me for a second. Imagine this with me for a second. What if there was no entitlement? What if there had been zero? Truly, and I know that's hard to get there, right? Because you just expect, we have these cultural expectations. But imagine just for a second, what if moments like this, not just moments like this, but any moment, what if that could have been experienced with zero entitlement whatsoever? I'm talking about there has never been a person propose outside in nature before ever. There's just no knowledge of that. There's never been a ring involved in this deal ever. There's all kinds of credit coming in all over the place. And so nobody has any entitlement whatsoever. You think the joy rises? Oh yeah. So here's why I'm telling you that. Your joy will be capped by your own expectations. Your joy will be limited by your own sense of entitlement. You know why? Because when you get the things you want, you'll just say, I had it coming to me. And when you don't, you'll just be mad. That's what entitlement does. When entitlement rises, it takes away your ability to enjoy anything because the things that you get, I just had it coming to me. That's what I deserved anyway. It's really more my paycheck than anything. And the things you don't get, you are frustrated about. You can't stand it. You end up punching your car. So what happens is, as your entitlement minimum rises, your joy maximum falls. Does that make sense? And it is possible to be so entitled, in fact, that you run at a deficit. You're frustrated. You don't love your life. In fact, you hate it because you think God gave you a raw deal when he didn't because of the confusion called entitlement. I'll say that one more time. If you don't have a minimum entitlement, you will have no maximum joy. What if you woke up tomorrow rejoicing about your roof, your AC, your hot water, your car, your job, your boss? Yeah, I went there, your boss, even your boss, okay? Like, what if you rejoiced about every single thing in your life? Everything. You would feel like you were moving around in God's theater watching the movie play, and you would enjoy it. That's what would happen. I'm fighting for your joy tonight. I don't want you to embrace some false reality. A lack of entitlement is not embracing some false reality. I'll fake myself out like I don't deserve anything, and then I'll be happy. No. It's not that. It's remembering that you actually don't deserve anything. It's not some false humility idea where it's like, okay, just lower my expectations. Like I don't think something good is gonna, should come my way. It's no, nothing good should come your way. That's the reality. And if you can embrace that, you will be a joyful, free, faith-filled person. Let me pray that that's who we'd be. Thank you, Jesus, Son of God, that you did not grasp the things that you could have grasped for, that you did not leverage the things that you could have leveraged. You were never confused about what you deserved. In fact, you deserved everything, and you gave it all up for the sake of connecting us to God. Thank you. Thank you. God, will you make it possible? Will you make it possible, God, that we would connect to you through faith in a way that receives that as one who is rejoicing, as one who is receiving what's not deserved. Every gift, whether it's proposal or just waking up from a nap, it does not matter. Everything is from you. Everything. Give us open hands, God. You can place in and you can take out. You can place in and then you can move it to somebody else's hand. You are in charge. You distribute everything. We deserve nothing. Let us keep our eyes on you, the one who loves us, the one who cares for us, the one who calls us friend, even when we accuse.